opposed to it. Like Ernie Johnson on Inside the NBA. Stop wearing bow ties. You just look stupid. And I understand that I'm not a great dressed person, but I'm also not wearing a bow tie. So when you talk about irrational things that annoy you about people, bow ties, very annoying to me. With that said, I don't know that I hate John Mozeliak as much as a lot of people do. I'm kind of Mozeliak indifferent because on the surface, I'm not really against all of the moves they've made, if that makes sense. Like on their own, in a bubble, in a vacuum, bringing in Lance Lynn's not a bad thing. In a vacuum, bringing in Kyle Gibson's not a bad thing. And in reality, we may not want to acknowledge it, but they did a very good job adding to the bullpen. Did they not get a Josh Hader? Of course they didn't. But they went out and made the bullpen better because the bullpen was terrible. So, like, on the surface, and Sonny Gray, which is a good pickup. Despite what Randy tells you every morning about how, I guess, Sonny Gray puts a bunch of puppies in a burlap sack and drowns them in the river. Therefore, Randy is just convinced that this cat is awful. But all that said, they haven't done terrible, but they just didn't hit a big home run. That's fine. I am not anti-John Mozeliak. But I heard this audio this morning from him talking with the media, and now I think I might hate him. Here, play that audio, Rockio.
I feel like it's like something that has always been, when you look at over the course of those years, like some of the decisions that we've made that have been positive versus negative, there is definitely a common denominator of people that truly want to be here. And as you guys can all imagine, in the free agent world, proxy tends to be dollars, right, or years and dollars. Whereas, there are times where people just truly want to be a part of this organization, a part of the St. Louis community, and it usually ends much better that way. And so when we entered this offseason, we didn't go in strictly trying to chase that or look for that, but it was something that was definitely underlined, and when it showed up early, that's how we were able to get these deals done in the timely fashion that we did. I mean, as you're standing here today, the free agent market is still going, right? And we were able to find players that wanted to be here, and we're able to get them to agree to deals really right around Thanksgiving.
You got those people because nobody else wanted them. That is on its surface a lie. Not even a lie. I'm not going to call the gentleman a liar. I'm going to say he's spinning yarns. The idea that the reason why Lance Lynn is here and Kyle Gibson is here is because, boy, they wanted to be part of the Cardinal way, and we really thought they'd fit in great, and we want guys that want to be here. We don't want to chase, I don't know, actual good players that we might have to beg a little bit and pay a little bit extra for. We wanted has-beens that want to come in and actually play for us and be part of the Cardinal way. My issue with this is that, of course, they wanted to be here. Right when free agency started, you approached two guys that nobody was beating down the door to sign. Then you signed them, and then you try to tell us, John Q. Public, that, hey, they wanted to be here. We had to get these guys done. We had to get them signed. They had to be locked in, ready to go. The reality is you are frugal, and you do not make attempts to sign big-name people. And again, I'm not someone that cares so much about the money you spend. Like, you were never going to spend the money it takes to get Yamamoto, and I'm fine with that. There are a handful of teams who can do that. Dodgers, Yankees, probably Cubs. There are the Phillies, I think, could do that. There are a handful of teams that have that kind of cash that they can do that. I'm not some unrealistic jamoke that sits back and says, why were we not in on Yamamoto? Why didn't we make a push for it? I'm not one of those guys. But when you come to me and you tell me that essentially the main criteria for signing a free agent contract with the St. Louis Cardinals, coming off the worst season they've had since I've been alive, that the number one criteria was they wanted to be here. That's all you got? There isn't, hey, we made a real push and we maybe had to overpay for somebody, but we overpaid them because we're in it to win it. No, we don't do that. What we do is we find has-beens who had 7 ERAs basically last year, sign them up and say, hey, bring them in. Bring them in. Hey, they wanted to be here. Think about it this way. Like, let's think about this, Rocky. Have you seen, let me try to think of a movie that involves, like, boy, girl, relationship, nerd wants the girl. Like, have you seen Pretty in Pink?
Yes. So that's what I was going to go for.
Wonderful John Hughes movie, Pretty in Pink. Also featured a very good song by a band called OMD, called If You Leave. Rockio, can you tell me what the acronym OMD stands for without looking it up?
No idea.
Orchestral
I have no idea.
Maneuvers in the Dark.
Oh, okay.
That is OMD.
Oh, I
How
see what
about
they're going.
that?
I see what they're going for.
See, there you go. You like them?
Yeah, I like that.
So, anyway, Pretty in Pink, right? That is a story of Molly Ringwald, whatever the hell her character's name was in the movie. And then there's James Spader and Andrew McCarthy. They're like the rich kids. And Andrew McCarthy's the rich kid that's not a dick. And then on the other side, you've got James Spader, who's the rich guy who is a dick. And he's, like, James Spader is just dick in everything he's in. Like, they don't even have to give him a character title. Like, hey, look, that's, John Bender as played by Judd Nelson. No, it's just dick as portrayed by James Spader, right? And then you've got Ducky. That's the only name I remember from this damn movie. Ducky. And he is played by, what's his name from 2.5 Men? What's his name? John Cryer.
Do these characters have facsimiles as Cardinals? Like, is one of these guys John Mozeliak?
Okay. In this case, I'm going to go and say that Molly Ringwald is John Mozeliak in this case, representing the Cardinals. And then you've got Ducky. Ducky is every free agent starting pitcher not named Sonny Gray that they signed. So Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn. He covets you. He loves you. He'll be there no matter what because no one else wants Ducky, and he fawns over you, the Cardinals. They want to play there. Then on the other side, Andrew McCarthy is every high dollar, actually good free agent, right? The Cardinals should be coveting those guys. That's who they should covet. They should want, like, to dream bigger, like Molly Ringwald did in Pretty in Pink, because she had Ducky. Ducky was a nerd, and he's singing Try a Little Tenderness. Ducky was there. He was desperate. He was in love. But on the other side, you have, like, the James Spader and Andrew McCarthy. Those are like the Yamamotos and the Jordan Montgomerys and the Snells and all these guys who the Cardinals didn't even attempt to be like Molly Ringwald. Molly Ringwald at least wanted those guys. The Cardinals are like, no, we have no self-esteem. We don't have any pride whatsoever. We're going to settle, and we're going to take these guys before we even throw any money or any resources at the people that might actually help us. It would be an improvement. It would be like if two guys like me and Rockio, admittedly, probably 4s, depending on what part of Missouri, we may be a 6. I don't know. We're not the most attractive guys, no offense, but we're not. We're kind of thick. You see my nipples poke through my shirt all the time. We are not coveted by greater members of the opposite sex. We're just not. And that's the way the world works. But if you start looking at this, and all we did for ourselves was said, listen, we got to kind of know what we are. We got to know our limitations. We only are going to attempt to mate with people 4 and below. Well, then you're never going to mate with a 7 or an 8 or a 9 if you don't try. And the Cardinals, for whatever reason, seem to have a very low self-worth. Their self-worth as an organization is, we're not even going to try. We just want people who like us for us. We like him because he's funny, and we settled. A 4 settled, right? That's what they want. That's who they are. Why can't the Cardinals be an organization that says, you know what, right now, we're like a 5 or a 6. We used to be like a 10, but we're like a 5 or a 6. But we should aim bigger. But they didn't. They said, nah, we'll settle for the people who want to be with us. They want to be with us. Like, that's called settling. Who wants to settle in life? Like, that's what frightens me about the Cardinals now. When I hear that conversation and I hear John Mozeliak say things like, listen, they wanted to be here. So I guess, we're just not, that's like, okay, it sounds like the number one criteria.
You don't want the Cardinals to settle, but on the flip side was last offseason where, to continue with your analogy, where I'm going to switch movies here, where they had a little shallow Hal problem, and they decided to give a huge gargantuan contract to a player at a position they didn't need to give a huge gargantuan contract out at the catcher position. So would you rather them overspend and maybe go out for a girl? Listen, you could have gone. Why are you treating the 7 like she's a 9 when you could just sit back and go with what you should. What's in your level?
Here's why
which is more egregious from the Cardinals last offseason when they overspent on a player they didn't need, or this offseason where they maybe didn't go hard enough on players they desperately needed?
I disagree with your premise, because I have no issue with the money they spent on Contreras. You know why? Because it was chicken bleep money relative to some of the other deals we're talking about. Like it didn't feel like a bad deal. And you say you didn't need to spend money on that position. Why? He was available, and you're replacing an all-time legend, which is a huge part of your team, and then everyone just ran this dude up under the bus. You know what I'm saying? So I disagree. Now, if they would have gone out and signed some dude for $250, $300 million and it was a dud, I would understand. I disagree with the premise. Again, I'm not someone who believes that the Cardinals should go out and just automatically give $250, $300 million contracts. I get they have budgets. I'm not a total moron. I understand all that. My problem is when you're trying to sell people that you signed a bunch of has-beens because, hey, they wanted to be here. Also, another premise that I disagree with is the idea that Mozeliak says, when we had to go out and beg people, they didn't turn out well. Who did you beg to come here that came here? Who did you go out and beg? Because you made trades to get most of the big-name people you've ever gotten. Like, who have you gone out on the free agency market, someone who was coveted by everybody, you begged them to come, and then it just totally bottomed out? Like, I'm truly drawing a blank. I mean, yes, you signed Contreras last year, but I don't call that a dud. I think you guys screwed him, and your pitchers ran him up under the bus.
Well, when you talk about a player who didn't mesh in St. Louis with the fan base, Dexter Fowler.
But Dexter Fowler, at the end of the day, wasn't a bad deal.
It wasn't a bad deal, but
it was the right move at the time.
And I agree with that. But I think his point is that despite it being a good deal, and despite maybe Dexter being able to give this team something, even when he wasn't playing up to his contract on the back half of it, the fact of the matter is he did not fit in St. Louis, and it was a public thing where his wife's on Twitter, where he's on Twitter, where it's a huge thing where the fans are bashing him. He's taking it hard, and I just wonder if maybe that kind of reaction is maybe something he's getting to, because I'm trying to think of other ones. I don't remember anything happening with Mike Leake where it was the culture of St. Louis
didn't fit. That wasn't a bad deal for Mike Leake.
But we're trying to find money that didn't go the way they would. The other ones are like Brett Cecil. I don't imagine that's the deal he's referring to in this case either.
So then he's got one deal he's referring to, basically. Dexter Fowler, cool.
I'm trying to think of other big-name deals.
Sometimes things don't work out. When I was in Philadelphia, they signed Jonathan Papelbon, and when they signed him, they thought they were still going to be competitive, but then you've got they just collapsed. They fell apart. All their great players got old really fast, and the Phillies sucked for like 7 or 8 years, and Papelbon was a disaster there. At one point, he got taken out of a game, got booed, and grabbed his crotch on the way to the dugout to people. Like, sometimes things don't work out. But that didn't stop the Phillies from signing players because, well, we tried to sign one poor fit one time. And like, what is that if that's the case? I'm not saying that's what it is. But you were only able to give me one example. And that one example is Dexter Fowler. And yes, it wasn't a great situation for Dexter Fowler. But part of it is because he sucked. You know what would have made it a good situation for Dexter Fowler? If he didn't suck at baseball. If Dexter Fowler were even remotely good at baseball, his experience may have been a whole lot better. It wasn't a good experience because he sucked. But you can't come to me and say, well, we're not even going to try to sign big-name guys anymore that are iffy about being here because, no, get your bow-tied, bespectacled ass out there and sell them. Sell them on St. Louis. Of course you don't have to sell Matt Carpenter on St. Louis. He's a stiff. Nobody wants him. You don't have to go out and sell Lance Lynn. His ERA was 9 last year. Nobody wants him. You signed him like the second the buzzer rang for free agency. You're like, Lance Lynn, come on back home, baby. It's like, sure. It's like, you sure you want me? Yeah, we want you. But like, no one else is calling. I know, but we want you because you want to be here, and our manager can't control the clubhouse. So we need some leaders with big, beautiful beards to come in and whip them into shape. What a horrible loser mindset we have. We're not even going to try to sign players anymore. I'm telling you, Adam Wainwright's going to pitch this year. I know it. It's going to happen. Come like July, Adam Wainwright's going to be like, well, the country album didn't make it.
and my folksy witticisms on TV ain't working. So here I am, guys. My goal is to get to 202 wins. That's what I want to do. I want to get to 202 wins. The Cardinals are like, listen, he wants to be here. He wants to be here. We want him. We need that leadership in the clubhouse. All right, back after this.
I'm excited because I got to introduce Rockio to someone as we were talking about the gritty, gutty white guy play. Like St. Louis loves white people. That's just how we are baseball. We love white people, apparently. Like, it was funny when people were talking about signing Juan Soto.
Baseman. It's just second baseman and shortstops.
Well, like, there was no way Juan Soto was ever going to play here. He's got too much energy. He's got too much life. We have to have dull white guys who, slide head first and stuff.
Scott Spezio brought some excitement.
Well, I'm not saying that all white guys, aren't good. I'm not, CNN. I'm telling you, there are good white people. But what I am telling you here is that it doesn't hurt to have guys who have a little fire about them, on occasion. Latin guys tend to do that. It's weird. These Latin players, and this is a novel concept, they seem to enjoy playing baseball. It's a weird thing.
I don't know how you wouldn't enjoy playing a sport for money.
I wonder if Mosaic, one of his criteria, there's two big criteria. All right, one, they want to be here. Two, not necessarily white, but you have to act really white. Okay, there you go. Let's write that down. 3, seem like you hate baseball when you're here. All right. That's called the Matheny way. I hated Mike Matheny so much as a manager. It's like the guy, it's almost like he set out every day to look like he hated being the manager of the Cardinals. He had no joy.
Was serious.
Okay, stop. It's like he wanted to be La Russa, basically. But La Russa even had joy on occasion.
Well... Yeah, because
he was hammered most of the time.
The time he smiled when they were about to win a second World Series.
Hey, that's nice.
And it came out of freaking nowhere. Yes, if you snag eternity from the jaws of defeat, you'd probably smile once too.
Yeah,
Matheny,
but who never smiled?
On the other side has David Ortiz just in his brain probably for the rest of his life just cranking 130 miles per hour off the bat every time he steps into the batter's box. That's just going through Matheny's mind for the rest of his life now every time he thinks about baseball. That's got to make you a little grumpy.
And then they sent you to Kansas City.
It's got to make you a little grumpy.
I'd be grumpy too.
That's all I'm saying.
If they were like, listen, you were the manager of an elite baseball franchise that you helped kind of run into the ground by being a stiff, and then they sent you to the worst baseball franchise. And you know what my favorite thing was? And this goes back to a Fesco thing. They were so excited when Matheny got there. They can tell you they weren't, but they're all homers over there, so you have to act like everybody you hire was the right move. Oh, we got Mike Matheny now. Cool. You know what Mike Matheny has? Beautiful hair and a gigantic watch. That's what Mike Matheny had. That's all he had. You know what he kind of looked like? You ever see a show called Wings?
100-win season as a manager.
Oh, that's great. Good. You know what? A lot of people have 100-win seasons as managers. I could. But here's the fun thing about baseball managers. I could have a 100-win season as a manager. Baseball managers mean 5 wins, 5 losses every year. The rest of it is see ball, hit ball, field ball, catch ball. That's all it is. You ever see a TV show called Wings?
Yes.
Love Wings. Antonio Scarpacci and Lowell and everybody. He reminds me of one of the brothers, the more mature brother on Wings. Does anybody remember, was it Brian or Joe Hackett? It was either Brian Hackett or Joe Hackett of Sandpiper Airlines. They flew their little Cessnas, and they had a little liner there, and then the Ellen, she was there. That was Crystal Bernard, and she was kind of hot, but not really hot, but she was passable hot. And then
I believe the older brother would have been Brian.
And what's his actual name?
Played by Stephen Weber.
No, other one. Not Stephen Weber.
Tim Daly.
Okay, Tim Daly. He had a weird Tim Daly quality about him. It's kind of what I thought of him as.
And how did Keith McDonald make you think of this?
Oh, good. Thank you for bringing me back. So anyway. So we were talking about Bo Hart and gritty white guys. And you go, well, Bo Hart, they love Bo Hart. I said, well, who was that other guy that hit a home run in his first at bat and had I think he hit 2 home runs ever, but his first was a home run. And it was Keith McDonald. Rockio had no idea who Keith McDonald was.
This is insane.
There was an era in the early 2000s, right when we got good again. And I was like, yes, this is baseball like it ought to be, baby. And we would just have little white fellas would come up and hit a home run in their first at bat and then never be seen or heard from again. It was wild.
The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure this guy, because this was 2000, would have been backing up Mike Matheny. So Keith McDonald had 9 plate appearances and 7 at-bats for the Cardinals in 2000. He hit 3 home runs. He then would have 2 more plate appearances his entire career, which means, Josh, that he finished his career with 9 at-bats and a 1.788 OPS.
But I guess he didn't want to be here.
And a 329 OPS plus, which means he is 230% better than the average player, and that's in that small little capsule.
But from what I understand, though, and I don't know if this is true, but I've heard rumors that they had to beg him to stay, and they're like, we don't beg people to stay here. If you either want to be here or you don't want to be here.
Well, I mean, Keith McDonald, who I just found this out, was born in Yokosuka, Japan, probably was like, you know what? I can't do this Midwestern lifestyle.
He's like,
Get me
I can't
out of
do
here.
this. I'm too Japanese for these people. They're like, you're not even remotely Japanese.
He was born in Japan, and he grew up all over California. The man was not going to stay in St. Louis, Josh. That was the problem.
You know, and I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. Okay, and I got other things to talk about too, but it's wild to me how many black players we had in the 80s compared to how many we have now. Like over the last 25 years, like the game, I just mean baseball in general. And I'm not one of these people that like USA Today every year releases some sort of report that says, black kids aren't playing baseball. Well, they're probably playing more fun sports where you get to do things, like football, basketball.
I'm sure there was a study that said that. That young African American kids are not playing baseball.
That's what I said. I didn't make it up. It wasn't from the.
There was a lot of studies that said that.
The offices of Josh Ennis here. I'm saying every year USA Today releases this study.
Yes.
And they say, well, black kids don't play baseball anymore. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why: socioeconomic reasons, financial reasons. Baseball is extremely boring and requires you to stand with your thumb in your ass for 4 hours and do very little. Now, you get paid well to do very little. But, basketball is more fun. You get to do things when you play basketball. Hell, soccer is more fun. You can at least run. Football, these are more fun things.
It's also not impossible, like you said, the socioeconomic thing. It's a lot harder to put together a baseball game with, your kids on the neighborhood block. You need bats, you need ball, you need gloves, you need an open enough space that you can actually, hit a ball without breaking stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need any of that in soccer or football or basketball. It's a much more confined thing. The equipment's a lot more confined. Baseball, it's hard to get little kids to play it because
it's mostly
logistics.
For rich white kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality. That's where the money is in that. That's why baseball parents are the worst.
Travel ball hasn't made that easier. I'm not saying AAU isn't a problem in basketball, but travel baseball and travel soccer is a huge issue too. That's why all these travel things are so problematic. But I think baseball is probably the most exacerbated than any of those other sports.
But I bring that up to tell you this. Black dudes used to play baseball and were very good at it. You go back to the mid-'80s in particular, that was like the heyday of black dudes playing baseball, and none of them really sucked. They were all pretty damn good. I mean, look at this team that was here. You're never going to see that again on a major league team, especially here in St. Louis, where you've got Ozzie, Willie, Vince, and that's just dudes that were in like the 85 and 87 starting lineup. I mean, go down the list. And I have my fix for baseball, because I do think baseball's gotten extremely boring in this world of strikeout, walk. Like that's what the game is now. You either strike out, you walk, you hit a home run. It's a boring game. There's no action in it. Thank God they finally started to try to do away with the shift. The shift was the worst thing ever. But if you go back to the mid-'80s, you had big cavernous ballparks where dudes were hitting doubles, triples, gappers. They were playing on concrete. It was like hitting a golf ball down an alley. It just kept going, and dudes are, how many times do you remember these highlights of Jack Buck? Coleman around second. He's streaking for third. Like, that never happens anymore. Dudes strike out, they walk, or they hit home runs. It's an extremely boring, inactive sport now, and that's why it's losing interest with people, and people aren't as into it. We need to get back to stealing bases. That's what we need more of. We need stolen bases. And look, I'm going to sound like this. Part of this sounds like kind of white guy National League Baseball fan guy. We need like suicide squeezes and sacrifice bunts. And actually, my number one solution.
You just want people to steal home, don't you?
I do. Yeah. Why not? Right. Have fun with it.
Yeah, fine.
Go watch the Savannah Bananas. They do it. But anyway.
Benny the Jet Rodriguez, thank you.
Oh, totally. The Jets leading off a third. The Jets stole home. But here's what I'm thinking, and this is one rule. And every time I bring this up, people say, oh, that's a stupid rule. But it's a brilliant rule, and you're dumb if you disagree, and that's fine. What we need to do is you need to be limited on the number of times you can throw a pickoff to any base. And you say, well, Josh, but what if they throw one pickoff over there, and then they're out of pickoff attempts for that at bat? Well, sorry, friend. Sounds like fella's going to steal second base then now, doesn't it? And that, my friends, is fun. And that's excitement. Why would elite athletes want to play baseball? You can't do anything. It's boring. So that is my main fix for baseball. You like, I was watching, I think, did Randy post this on Twitter the other day? I want to say there was an at-bat with Vince Coleman where a pitcher threw over like 20 times.
Yeah, that's been going around right now. Yeah, 20, I think he threw over 17 times, and then Coleman finally does.
Now imagine if he can only throw over once. So you have to be very selective when you throw a pickoff, because once you've thrown one pickoff, that guy can take a suicide lead if he wants to, and then boom, go. That's fun. And you say, well, Josh, but that's not fair to the pitcher. Well, then never throw a pick off. If you don't ever try to pick him off, then the game moves a little bit faster. Bada bang. I'm actually trying to go for commissioner, me and Bob Costas. Remember that era where people were like, Bob Costas wrote a book. He should be the commissioner of baseball. That was an era. Did you ever read his book?
I did not know.
Was it called Fair Ball? Yeah, I think it was called Fair Ball. It was literally a pamphlet. It was like 11 pages, but it was a book. And I sat down one day when I was like 12, 13 years old and read this entire book at Barnes & Noble. Find me how many pages Fair Ball had.
197.
It was a pamphlet.
Good read.
Yeah, it was a pamphlet. It was a one dump read. Like you sit there and you're like, I'm
young
done.
Bob Costas, ladies and gentlemen, on the front of this book. I did not remember him looking like that.
Why his face wasn't stretched back with string?
I know.
Look,
It's
he
a
was
very
good-looking
youthful
guy.
Costas.
Like in a way, I feel bad for Bob Costas because like you do this whole TV gig and you're like, well, like, my face is all over TV. I guess I've got to get horrible work done. Dude, I'm not saying this to be negative. I'm saying like just age gracefully.
But if what person on camera
That's what I would tell Bob Costas. Age gracefully.
2024.
You're
baby.
a man. Men have that advantage. They age gracefully.
2024,
Women don't
baby.
age. I feel bad for women. They don't age as gracefully as men do.
Botox me up. If I got to be on camera, every day, let's tighten some things.
I mean, look,
let's get rid of these crow feet. Let's tighten some things up. I'm with you, Bobby.
Look, Bob
don't
is
feel bad.
Quite a sanctimonious person, and I feel like he would dislike me, and that's fine. And he'd also dislike me if I said, hey, don't pull your face back with a bunch of strings and stuff. Just age gracefully.
Screw that.
Now, again, I'm 37, so it's easy for me to tell someone to age gracefully. But age gracefully, you're not on TV anymore. So just age gracefully.
Technology and money is a great thing. Keep on doing what you're doing. That's what I say to Julia Louis-Dreyfus as well.
Oh, by the way, she is an angel. She is hot. She's always been hot, like sneaky hot, underrated hot. All right, anyway, I want to talk about Jordan Montgomery in a second. Stay there.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues are back in action facing off against the Edmonton Oilers at home. 7 p.m. puck drop down at the Enterprise Center tonight. You can catch the pregame show right here on 101 ESPN starting at 6 p.m. And last night in the NBA, there was an arrest before the Suns and the Pistons game. The Suns went on to win 116-100 with Drew Eubanks playing, and that was after he was assaulted by Pistons center Isaiah Stewart before the game in the back of the arena. Again, Isaiah Stewart arrested and released for assault after that incident. That is your Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
It's amazing the number of people, when you take the time to look at the text messages that come in, not nice people. I don't really care because I'm a dick on the radio, so if you want to be a dick to me, fine. That's totally cool with me. But I don't see it during the show and during when I'm talking, but when I sit here for a few minutes, I was scrolling through and I'm like, boy, not pleasant. They don't like me. That's fine, though. I don't really give a damn. Like me, hate me. Like, who gives a damn? So it is what it is. But appreciate you guys for listening. You guys are really awesome. Now, other thing. Now, here's what we got here. So, what do you got?
It's just the fast lane refers to their YouTube comments as the snake pit, and I think that also works for the text line. I think, in fact, in this show, I think it's kind of switched because the YouTube chat is very positive and the text line is very, very negative.
Isn't that wild though? Like you sit back and you're like, what am I saying that's so offensive to you that you're so bothered by it? Like, if this bothers you, then I'm sorry. Then you're a child.
Somebody said, "This guy's telling us to age gracefully." What a crock.
Look, I don't think I've aged poorly. I don't think I've aged great. Listen, I didn't tell, by the way, I told Bob Costas to age poorly. So unless that's Bob Costas sending a text, I said just age gracefully. Don't have Botox and everything. That's all. Anyway, whatever. You're lucky I'm here. I'm going to go Trump on you. You are lucky I'm here. You are lucky I'm here. And I'm only here for another 20 minutes and one more day, and then it's over. And then you may never hear from me again. And you'll be sitting around one day, and you'll be like, I really long for that guy that had witticisms on the radio and was wonderful. And you'll be like, I miss him. I miss him a lot. That's going to be all you people. That said, I have thoughts on the Cardinals.
I was going to say, that's me about Jordan Montgomery right now.
Can I tell you something that bothers me? And this is not revisionist history because I said this when it happened. I just had no platform to do it. But I didn't have a whole week that I got to spout off on the radio here. But when they traded Jordan Montgomery, knowing that they were going to need starting pitching next year, I was like, well, that seems kind of dumb. So I walked into the Anthonys of the world and the BKs and people like that, and I went to Twitter and yelled to the mountaintops. I said, if you know you're going to need starting pitching and you know this guy is pretty good, why didn't you just offer him a boatload of cash and say, hey, stay here and be with us next year? Now, the argument could be that Jordan Montgomery just didn't want to be here. That's very possible. Maybe he wanted to go pitch somewhere competitive. That's all well and good. But back to our initial conversation we were having about how the Cardinals are far more concerned with has-beens that would rather be here than people that they might actually have to persuade to come here, allegedly. I understand why they didn't do it. Because they have zero self-esteem, don't believe in themselves, so they settle for a bunch of dweebs that just want to be here. But now as we sit here nearing the start of the season and the Cardinals could clearly use another starter, why didn't you just sign Jordan Montgomery when he was here? Like, this shouldn't be that difficult. Now, if he just went to you and said, I will never play for you again, you guys are a bunch of dopes, and you said, fine, we'll trade you. But the argument that people made for why is what bothered me so much. The argument was, well, he was going to leave anyway, so you had to get something. Name what they got. Hey, Rockio, can you name what they got for Jordan Montgomery? Off the top of your head, what did they get for Jordan Montgomery?
That would have been Toccoa. No, that's all Baltimore pieces.
See,
it's young. It's young pitchers.
Oh wow!
CD-ROM. No, that's Baltimore too.
Young pitchers that you're never going to see.
Rangers,
wow! Man. And what do you need? And what do you need right now, Rockio? What could you use? What could you use?
Thomas Sajasi was from Texas.
Boy, old Thomas Sajasi. Oh yeah, that guy. He's gonna. We're winning the World Series with old Thomas Sajasi. Boy, we got us a winner there. You got a guy that just pitched in the World Series, a guy who would be great for you in your rotation. You had him here, and everybody I talked to, all this, you can't look it up and then go, I remember. You can't do that.
I was close. It was Tekoa Roby, Thomas Sajaci, and John King.
They will never be anything. A, because I don't know who the hell they are, and B, the Cardinals traded for them, so they're guaranteed to be stiffs. If the Cardinals would have traded Thomas Sajaci, he'd go out and win 10 World Series. But my point being in all of this is I talked to all the smart people, all the smart sports radio people, and all they could tell me about this deal was, you had to get something for him. Yeah, and I guarantee you, just like you had to look that up, 9.5 out of 10 people that don't masturbate to baseball prospectus probably wouldn't have known who that was either, the 3 people they got. But you know who Jordan Montgomery is because he pitched in the World Series and he pitched very well when he was here, and you certainly could use him as a number 1 or a number 2. But you don't have him because I guess he was just someone who you said, I don't even know that he wants to be here. He's no Lance Lynn. Boy, Lance Lynn wants to be here. He wants to be a leader. It's absurd. It's absurd. As we sit here today, everybody says we should go out and make a move for, maybe we should go sign Jordan Montgomery. Maybe you should have signed him when you had him. But the general manager wouldn't do that. And I hear all these people like Blake Snell's name come up. Like, who decided that Blake Snell was an ace? Rockio, answer this question. Who decided that Blake Snell is a no-doubt, guaranteed slam dunk ace? What makes Blake Snell an ace?
The voters who gave him a Cy Young while only pitching 5 1/3 every game.
5 1/3. I think 5 1/3 might be high. You should see what he does in the playoffs. It's like 4 2/3. Yet somehow people are, oh my God, we got to have Blake Snell.
That's why, because if you win a Cy Young, the rationale is a Cy Young winner is an ace.
It's the same thing
ignoring the 5 2/3 or 5 1/3 that he usually goes, and only focusing on ERA, FIP, WHIP, and so on and so forth.
It's stupid. By the way, I'd much rather have Jordan Montgomery over Blake Snell, 100%. You know what the problem is? You had him. And now you'd like to have him probably. And I don't know what the inner workings were. I don't know what they offered him, what they did, what the approach was. But all these media people in town and all the baseball prospectus, athletic reading nerds of the world, they want to let you know, hey, you got to get something for him. What you should have done is done everything you can to keep the guy, because I'd argue he's much better than Blake Snell. Maybe not much better, but he's better. I'd take him over Blake Snell because at least the guy throws some innings. Blake Snell will give you 3 1/3 of 8 walks in the playoffs, and you're like, all right, we got us an ace. We got us a baller in here. That bothers me. I'm annoyed by the fact that, like, the people that we determine are must-have people, those must-have people that are like, oh, my God, this guy's an ace, and if we don't go out and get him. It's the same thing for what's-his-name from Chicago, what's-his-name from the White Sox.
Dylan Cease.
Dylan Cease. Everybody's convinced Dylan Cease, like, oh, we failed in the offseason if we didn't sign Dylan Cease. Why? Because he had one good year? Throws a whole hell of a lot of pitches? It's like this. That's how I feel about Montgomery. Montgomery is the best guy you could have, and you had him. Instead, you're like, well, we paid, we got Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn. Cool. Just sign the guy you had. Like, it enrages me. And I'm even more enraged by the idea that people were like, well, we had to get something. And then most of them couldn't name what they got for him because those guys are going to be stiffs and never do anything. And Jordan Montgomery pitches in the World Series. He's probably going to pitch well wherever he goes this year. I also don't believe in the concept of aces even existing in baseball anymore. You know what an ace is? Bob Gibson, a guy who you give the ball to and he goes 9 innings. That's an ace. Justin Verlander's like the last of a dying ace breed, right? Like guys like that. Those are the last of a dying breed of guys who, when you get the ball, you're like, listen, I need 8 innings. You know what an ace is? Real talk? More so than any guy that's on the market right now that people consider an ace? Matt Morris going 7+ in Game 5 of the, he might have gone 8, going 7 or 8 in Game 5 of the 2001 Division Series against Curt Schilling, one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. Matt Morris went toe-to-toe with that man, including a strikeout looking with the bases loaded, I believe, in the bottom of the 7th or the bottom of the 8th. I forgot which inning it was. Point being, Matt Morris throws that hook on him. Bam, I think he rung up maybe Matt Williams or somebody like that. Bada bing, went toe-to-toe. That's what aces do. Aces don't get paid paid a bunch of money, win Cy Young awards, and get taken out in the third inning of playoff games. That ain't aces. We sit there and we want to throw this label on so many people about what's an ace, what's an ace, what's an ace. And I know baseball's different. It's not 1967, so guys aren't going to throw 9 innings anymore. I get that. You're not going to have closers that throw 4 innings like you're the Mad Hungarian or something, or Bruce Sutter. I get that. However, people want to throw out ace, ace, ace. To me, a guy who throws 5 innings a game and walks double the number of people that Jordan Montgomery pitches in similar innings pitched is not an ace. 5 innings of pitching is not what aces do. And I get that baseball is a different world than it used to be, but stop trying to sell me on, oh my God, if we don't get Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is basically Blake Snell. And Blake Snell is a guy that walks a whole hell of a lot of people and doesn't throw a bunch of innings because oh Josh, he strikes people out. Let me tell you what happens when you got guys who strike out a lot of people and walk a lot of people. They throw a lot of pitches. When you throw a lot of pitches, you know what you don't do? Throw a lot of innings. Thank you. We'll wrap it up after this. It's Balloon Party. reading some of the YouTube comments, and people are talking about Jordan Montgomery and whether or not he's an ace. I don't think Jordan Montgomery's an ace because I don't think aces exist. They're not real. It's a figment of our imagination. They're not built that way. That's not what baseball is anymore. Like, do you believe that Aaron Nola is an ace?
In today's game, he is, yeah, because he'll go 7 innings for you.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Do you think Zach Wheeler is an ace?
When he's healthy.
Okay. Fun fact, Zach Wheeler had essentially the same outing as Jose Quintana in Game 1 of the 2002 Wild Card Series. So everybody gets all hyped up on these guys. Got to have an ace. No, you have to have someone who's competent and good enough to get you to the point where you get to a bullpen. Like this isn't the world anymore. And I told you this when I talked to, what's his name? Not Matt Morris, but what's his name that I just mentioned? Curt Schilling. So Curt Schilling, when I talked to him once, and he was surprised that I brought this up because I'm a Cardinals fan, so it was the first thing I brought up when I talked to Schilling. I said, oh, Curt, Schill, as it were. Schill, do you recall Game 5 of the 2001 division series against the Cardinals? And he goes, best game I've ever pitched. Favorite game I've ever pitched. Said it was me versus Matt Morris, and he basically laid out everything that happened in that game. But back then, if you knew that you had, I'd throw Matt Morris to me is more of an ace than anybody the Cardinals have right now. And outside of Chris Carpenter, hand to God, I'd put him as more of an ace than even Adam Wainwright. Like, he was just a dog. I loved Matt Morris. But I think there's a mindset that certain guys have that make them, like, statistically they may not be aces or what you'd consider contractually to be aces, but they just have something that other guys don't. And part of that, when you see like a Schilling, when he got into the playoffs, Hall of Fame-wise, Schilling's not a Hall of Famer based on his regular season. They're fine. Dude got into the playoffs. He was just a different dude. Pedro Martinez, just a stud in the playoffs. Certain dudes were just gifted playoff performers, and they did it best when that moment was there. Some guys are the opposite. Some guys are the opposite just based on who they're playing. See, Kershaw, Clayton. Some guys just aren't there. Like, I was at Game 5 of the 2017 World Series. It was the Astros versus the Dodgers. And it was a fella by the name of Dallas Keuchel versus Clayton Kershaw in Houston. It's also important to note that I was extremely hammered and don't remember much of the game. And I did fall asleep in a suite before the walk-off hit in the 10th. Either way, does not matter. Point being here is that Clayton Kershaw went to the mound in the bottom of the first inning of a swing World Series game with a 4-0 lead and lost. Some guys just aren't playoff dudes. Some dudes are. And we're sitting here like getting worked up over not signing Blake Snell, who throws 5 innings. Blake Snell ain't never going to be that dude.
I just want to throw this out there because I thought it was fascinating. Because the Morris and Schilling battle was both Game 1 and Game 5 of that series. The combined of across those two games for those two pitchers, it was Matt Morris pitched 15 innings, allowed 13 hits and 2 earned runs.
Yep.
Curt Schilling pitched 18 innings, allowed 9 hits and 1 earned run.
It was sick.
Unbelievable.
And I believe that the last pitch Matt Morris threw in that game was either in the 7th. Did he pitch 8 or 7 in that game?
He pitched 7 in game. He pitched 7 in Game 1, 8 in Game 5.
So I believe that Game 5, his last pitch was a strikeout looking, and I believe it was to Matt Williams with the bases loaded in a 1-1 game, because in the 7th, J.D. Drew, either the top of the 8th or the top of the 7th, J.D. Drew hit a solo home run that tied the game at 1. And then, of course, Tony Womack came up and had the hit up the middle off of Steve Klein, and that ended the game, and I probably broke something. 15-year-old me threw something, if I had to guess. I remember a lot of this because I used to call these games and do a recorder because I once dreamed of being the voice of the Cardinals. I have that tape somewhere. And all I remember is the second the hit went up the middle, I stopped trying to be a professional guy and I just threw my stuff against the wall and I said, I hate baseball. Baseball's the worst. I hate it. But, you know, that's how that went. And that Matt Morris series was great, you know. But, like, people get so caught up in, hey, this guy's an ace. There are no aces anymore. The best you can get is guys who show up big in the postseason. That's why when I hear people talk about Blake Snell like he's an ace, dudes that throw 5 innings, sorry, here's a rule of Josh Ennis. If you average 5 innings a start and you walk double the number of people that a Jordan Montgomery walks, you ain't an ace, Chief. Sorry, and I ain't paying you to be one.
Just a little validation here. Yeah, J.D. Drew off Curt Schilling in the top of the 8th, and then you're right, bottom of the 8th, He strikeouts. He gets Mark Grace. To strikeout looking, and then of course Tommy Womack on Steve Klein single to
2 out
left
of
field.
3.
There it is.
I got 2 out of 3 on that one. Sometimes I like to show off my vast Cardinal knowledge of the great eras of Cardinal. Boy, 2000, really quick, and I know I got to leave, but a video's been going around of a walk-off home run that Jim Edmonds hit in 2000 off of the Mets. And it may have been was it off of Mahomes' dad? I think that's why it might be going around. And all I remember is I used to sit in my dad's car and listen to Cardinal games down in Louisiana because you could pick up KMOX in the car. So I'd drive it up and down the block, and I would do it. And I would hold up a recorder to the speaker in the car so I'd have Jack Buck audio to study. Jack Buck and Mike Shannon audio. And all I remember about that weekend, that was kind of when it became real that the Cardinals kind of are back. Because I think they swept the Mets that weekend, and all 3 of those games ended on a walk-off. I believe that Fernando Vina had a walk-off hit that weekend, and obviously Edmonds, that was a Friday night. Jimmy Edmonds comes up there, and all I remember is Jack Buck, and of course his voice was a little bit weaker at that time. He had Parkinson's. He was only about a year away or so from dying, or 2 years away from dying. And I just remember Edmonds waiting at the dish. Here it comes, swinging a long one to right. Is it good enough? It looks like it. That's a winner on a home run by Edmonds. 6-5 Cardinals, still 8 games ahead of Cincinnati. They beat the Mets for the first time this year. Yeah, tell me I'm not a Cardinal fan. Come at me, Twitter. Tell me, come and we'll fight in the parking lot. Jets and Sharks style. Blades and everything. All right, anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Be good.